Hi, I'm David the Bruce. This is Visual Hollywood, where we take a femme-centric point of view. Well, King Kong ain't no woman, and King Kong is really big. We've got so much to show you. We've got not only the trailer, we got clips, we've got interviews. Oh, yeah, the list just goes on and on what we've got for you today. We're just devoting the whole show to Kong Skull Island. And this is the, I don't know, umpteenth, thousandth remake, slight exaggeration there, of King Kong. I think it originally opened in 1931. It was so popular, people hadn't seen anything quite like it. They were lined up around the block. People really wanted to see this. It was sort of like an adaptation to Beauty and the Beast. Did I say Beauty and the Beast? Oh my gosh, you know, they kind of opened up just a few weeks apart from each other. Oh, isn't it interesting how a similar story or the same story can be retold in different kinds of ways? Well, this one is the one with the big ape. Yes. Not the gorgeous hunk beast. Anyway, oh, geez, I don't even know why I got into all that. But anyways, you are in for a good ride on this show. You really are. We've got it all for you. I'm David the Bruce. This is Visual Hollywood. Today, an entire show to Kong Skull Island.
It's a survey job. Just chopper them in and out. Be a joyride.
You are going to tell me everything I don't know, or I'm going to blow your head off.
This planet doesn't belong to us. Ancient species owned this Earth long before mankind. I spent 30 years trying to prove the truth. Monsters exist.
You don't go into someone's house unless you're picking a fight.
What you're looking at is a monster from some bygone era. It's time to show that man is dead.
I'm a big lover of myth, and every movie that I've done in the last couple of years has all been rooted in stories that are much older than the contemporary telling of them. And so usually that means I end up doing something that's an independent film, but when this script came along and I saw that this was an opportunity to tell these old stories in a way that's bigger and immersive, it's IMAX and it's 3D, it's huge, and we're talking about one of the greatest myths of all time. I couldn't resist. Kong is such a huge part of the mythology of cinema, and it tells this incredible story that is really timely, dealing with the issues that we're still dealing with today when it comes to man versus nature. So if we want to talk about agriculture or war, these huge things that we are still grappling with as human beings and trying to find a way, instead of fighting with something, to actually work with it. And I think this is such a great way of telling that story in a way that's still fun and entertaining and interesting to watch. I think there's something really beautiful about the fact that Kong is king. I mean, he's the biggest thing on this island, and yet he doesn't choose to use that power in a way that's harmful. He defends when he needs to, but for the most part, he's actually a quite peaceful character. So I think there's something quite lovable and redeeming about that fact. That it kind of reminds me, maybe this is a stretch, but I just remember the first time I ever was with an elephant. And I was like completely intrigued and totally terrified at the same time. Like I kept taking a step closer and then running away and then coming up closer, because there's this gentleness to their soul, but at the same time you know that they are the one with the upper hand. They can crush you at any moment, and yet they don't, and there's something really wonderful about that. We've taken bits from Hawaii, Australia, and Vietnam. Vietnam in particular is very special because it's never been captured on film before in this way, in these locations. But everything is, in a lot of ways, untouched. We're trying to get nature in its raw form and its wildness, and show the diversity of the island, that the island isn't just a place that looks specifically like one thing. As you continue to travel through it, you see the variations. There's desert, there's trees that look like they're falling apart, there's trees that are also squishy, there's rivers. And so having that play of there being parts that are more dry and parts that are more lush add to a texture of the film.
Yeah, you smell that? That's death.
What the hell is this place?
This is what's left of Kong's parents.
I've taken enough photos of mass graves to recognize one.
The crash site's just on the other side of this valley. We'll cross through and make it to the highest point west.
This place is a real no-no, sir.
We need to be going to the north side right now.
And you welcome to do that, my man. By yourself. I'm not leaving Jack out there. Now, who's with me?
We can make it.
You're mighty right we can make it. Now, stay sharp. Keep an eye out.
I've only been here 28 years. What do I know?
Once I really started to get into the script, I realized like this is a fascinating character. Like it's, how often do you get to play someone who like pops out of a time capsule of 28 years and doesn't know what else has gone on in the rest of the world? So yeah, Hank Marlowe is a really amazing character for that, because if you think he's been on Skull Island for about 28 years, that means he's gone through his 20s, his 30s, and his 40s. Pretty much alone. There's something wonderful about the early 70s and the innocence that everybody had at that point. There's a lot of hard lessons that the world and humanity itself learned along the way since the 1970s, but it was a little bit more of an innocent time, and I think it was a perfect way to approach the story, I think. A perfect time to set it in anyway. And then once we get to Vietnam, I'm sure, I haven't been before, but I'm sure it's going to be a complete revelation in terms of geography and the otherworldliness of it, because Vietnam has been pretty much a closed country for so long. I'm sure we're bound to see some pretty amazing sights. They're going the extra mile with this one to really give us some dazzling visual imagery, and from what I've seen, it really is something to behold.
Well, if you look at that, it bleeds. What? We did that. We hook up with Chapman, there's enough munitions on that down sea stallion to finish the job.
Magnificent. You know why I carry this instead of an M16? Took it off a farmer fighting for the NVA. He surrendered right after we leveled his village. He was 50 years old, said he never even seen a gun until we showed up. Sometimes an enemy doesn't exist till you go looking for one.
What happens when they show up on your doorstep?
I'll still have his gun.
Best of luck with that, soldier. My character's named Randa, and he put this expedition together with, I guess, a little help from the Nixon administration, I think it's 1973, to ostensibly scour we've just developed satellite technology that finds unexplored regions on the Earth. It shows us them for the first time. And I've been looking for this island, this area for years. And so I put together an expedition to find rare earth elements and whatever we can exploit off the area. That's what I've told people. We have geologists, astrophysicists, and a helicopter crew that we requisitioned straight out of Vietnam. They were due to rotate home, so they got sidetracked taking us to this island. And one British SAS man and one knockout photographer. Tom's like an adrenaline junkie. I think his character was due to rotate out of Nam a long time ago, but he just stayed. He's trained U.S. Special Forces troops in tracking, rescue operations. He just keeps drifting kind of from job to job. And I find him, I think, in a bar in Saigon. And hire him on for this, just to track through uncharted territory and make our lives easier. Brie's a Vietnam War photographer, and she, I guess, is looking for a little extra dough, so she signs on. And her name is Mason Weaver, so we think it's a guy.
Fox 8 is down, Fox 4 is down. Respond, Fox 3.
Monkey?
What the hell is that? Somebody talk to me, man. Turn right heading 205. Fox leader to Fox group. On the perimeter. Ready gun in position. Kill that thing. Let's break it out. Fox leader to Fox group. Fire and kill. It's I guess an origin story. One that's kind of different, or very different from the ones that we've seen, in terms of finding this island and realizing there was a whole species of this animal and other animals that are kind of very different than any other animals we've seen, definitely bigger. And being able to sort of trace a history of a whole, I guess, ecosystem that was very different than any ecosystem that we've seen in any of the other Kong movies. It's just another imagining of King Kong and what that is and what his journey's been from where he came from and what he had to overcome, or the things that he was battling in his birthplace to stay alive and to keep the people alive around, and what his place is as a guardian of humanity, I guess. I like, because I went to see it when I was a kid, and it was a great story, and it was an adventure, but it was in the city, you know, and he was on buildings that I could recognize and swatting down planes, and he had a little bitty woman in his hand. And it was high adventure for us. So when I had an opportunity to do it, it was like, okay, this should be fun, especially if we're going to be in a place that's his origin. So it combines a lot of the elements that, you know, kids like. It's a high adventure story in a jungle, in an unknown place with, you know, not just Kong, but other things that might kill you. So it was kind of, you know, tempting to get in there and do that. I just like the fact that Packer's a warrior. who's very loyal to his men. He does have a huge resentment because Kong is killing his men, so it becomes his mission. So in my mind, he became, I became Ahab. He was my white whale, So that was the, driving force for me.
The exciting thing to me about Kong Skull Island, when you're asked to describe it, is there's a very simple answer for it, which is that it's a crazy and hopefully inventive, fun action movie that takes people out of their comfort zone and sends them on just a kind of balls to the wall adventure where things are beautiful and terrifying all at the same time. But the thing that's really exciting to me about Kong Skull Island is that there's a bunch of nuances to it, and there's a bunch of different sort of genres within the movie. There's a bunch of different characters within the movie that all have their own thing going on, and they all are sort of plucked from different movies and put into this one, where none of these people would normally interact. And the core of this movie, to some degree, for us, is to try and make it as character-based as possible, so you're invested in this journey, so you're invested in these people. So as these insane things happen to them, left and right, and as they're confronted with all of these creatures and obstacles and whatever, you care about what's going on. But the thing about Kong Skull Island to me is that it's all of these different things. It is a genre mashup of 70s films and very contemporary films, and hopefully we can sort of fuse the throwback elements and the very modern elements into something that becomes kind of timeless. People come back to Kong for a lot of reasons. People have been watching Kong for decades because it resonates with them on an intellectual level, on an emotional level, on a let me escape level. Every part of what the original Kong was is the best individual pieces of cinema in a lot of ways. It's great. There's incredible visuals. It takes you to a different world. It has things you haven't seen before. It takes you on a journey. You're invested in the characters, and it doesn't feel derivative of something that you've seen before. And you're invested in this creature. So it's really the best of all possible worlds as far as blockbuster filmmaking goes. We don't want to tell the story of Kong going back to New York. We don't want to tell the version and the story of that Kong. This is a new Kong. This is a new story. And the exciting thing became, how do we tell a new story within that mythology? How do we take elements of that character? How do we take the things people loved about Kong? How do we take the things people loved about Skull Island and improve on them and change them and reinvent them, not for reinvention's sake, but for a reason that solidifies why this movie should exist, why people can say, I'd go see that movie. And that's where the 70s comes in. That's where Lancet comes in. That's where Vietnam comes in. That's where all of these things come in, and we just fundamentally are trying to treat our Kong in a way that honors what came before it, but paves a new path. All the time in Hawaii and Australia, the actors consistently come up to me and they sort of say, this is beautiful. This is one of the prettiest places I've ever seen. And I agree with them, but my perpetual response is, wait until we go to Vietnam. I've now spent kind of a month of my life scouting Vietnam, discovering it, falling in love with it, and the places there they're just spectacular. Like I'm almost at a loss for words to describe how special that place is, and I just keep saying to the actors, wait until we go there.
You are going to tell me everything I don't know, or I'm going to blow your head off.
Monsters exist. Yesterday I was a crackpot. But today?
You dropped those charges to flush something out. Who are you?
Ancient species owned this earth long before mankind, and if we keep our heads buried in the sand, they will take it back. My agency is known as Monarch. We specialize in the hunt for massive unidentified terrestrial organisms.
You knew that thing was out here?
I'm sorry for your men, Colonel. I truly am. Get us home with proof so we can send the cavalry.
Kong's massive presence and strength gives him the ability to intimidate other creatures. Despite his large size, his tenderness and goodness allows him to feel and connect with humans. This alone makes him so likable and makes him as popular as he is today. We have saying in China, don't judge anyone by their appearance. True beauty lies within. This also relates Kong's situation. I play a character named San in this film. She's a biologist who has a firm pursuit for the truth in her own field. She looks very innocent and delicate on the outside, but in fact, she's really independent, knowledgeable, and determined. As a scientist, I think she's really devoted, and she knows a lot more than others in the group about all the creatures on Skull Island, including King Kong. This has been the most ever travel for one film. We started in Hawaii and then Australia, and we'll finish off in Vietnam. We've been to so many beautiful locations in each of these countries. Hawaii was tough because of the unpredictable rain. Australia, on the other hand, presented so many little creatures of its own on set. I remember one time I encountered both a huge caterpillar that landed on my head and a snake that was just under my seat, a snake. That was so scary. And Vietnam was the hardest one of the three. But what I can say is all locations have extraordinary views and beautiful landscapes.
Oh man, I think Skull Island is it's a thriller, man. I mean, it's an old-fashioned sort of throwback to great movie making and a good time at the theater. I mean, you have a classic story like King Kong, and you get to sort of reinvent the wheel again. And you know, it's set in the 70s. It has that grit to it, but it's a fun film because it has the humor and it has the life to it. You know what I mean? So it really, I remember when I first read it, it just sort of lifted off the page, and I was like, this would be super cool to just jump into. I want to do a film like this, you know, and I got the opportunity. I mean, it's a bit of a shadowy organization. You don't really know sort of what they do, and Brooks only knows so much. You know, he only knows that Randa has these ideas about, you know, these monsters, and he's only seen these fossils, 1,000-year-old fossils, and these bones and these, you know, pictures of certain things, but I don't think, you know, he believes it again. But they use the science and they use the theories to sort of justify this belief in sort of, you know, protecting the world from these monsters. Jordan, he has instinct, you know what I mean? And I just remember when I talked to him about coming onto this film after my last one, it was just character, you know? And he was just interested in bringing on great actors who you could put in a room and they could just bounce off of each other and play. And that's kind of what we get to do every day. I mean, you know, some days you stick close to it, the script, and then some days you get to riff, and that's what we got. That's what we get to do every day, and it's about character. It's not just a big action thing and CGI and this. I mean, even though the guys who do that are really, really good, but the audience has to care about these people. I don't know, man. I don't know yet because I'm right now I'm in it, so it's crazy, but I just feel like people are just gonna enjoy it, and as sort of cliche as that sounds, it's one of those films that you go on the ride and you just enjoy the ride.
An uncharted island. Let me list all the ways you're gonna die. Rain, heat, disease-carrying flies, and we haven't started on the things that want to eat you alive.
We'll double that.
Plus a bonus if we make it back. If?
In this dirty old part of the city where the sun refused to shine.
Is that a monkey?
God on the island.
We don't belong here.
But the devils live below us. I call them skull crawlers. Why? Because it sounds neat.
Okay.
Look, I just made that name up. I'm trying to scare you.
I'm fine calling them that. Are you cool with it?
Yeah, that seems like
I
that
like
seems
the
like
name.